Hi, this is Pat McDonald. We are here today at the Vermont Granite Museum. I've been associated with the museum for many years and was asked to interview some of the volunteers here so that you can get to meet them and so that we can thank them appropriately because they do such great work here. My first guest is Heather Ritchie. Heather, welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
Heather's got two hats here. First of all, she's a volunteer, and second of all, she is one of our incredible artists. And so, Heather, maybe you could tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Plainfield, but I was born and raised in Barre. I got into the stone carving trade in 1999. I received a grant from the Vermont Folklife Center to do an apprenticeship with master carver George Kurjanowicz. And after my apprenticeship ended, I stayed with George for 5 years, full-time, and since then, part-time, doing work in the memorial industry.
That's great. So what do you do here at the museum?
Here at the museum, I come in when there are parties and functions and fairs, and I do granite carving demonstrations.
Oh, that's great. So you may see it a little bit later. There's a little bit of booths here where you would set up your work and people could come watch you.
Yep,
do
each
your
artist
thing.
who has a connection to the museum has a station set up with their work and a little bit of information about them so that when people come and tour the museum, they not only get a glimpse of the historical data, but they get some current and fresh new artwork that's happening too.
And there's so much new here at the museum. They have done so much work over the years here with the new flooring, all of the artwork that's here. It's really amazing.
They've really turned the space into a working, functional studio space for us artists, as well as archival museum space.
That's great.
Too.
So you get to meet the public on a regular basis. Do you have any special stories?
I do. It's really fun. When I do my demonstrations, I not only show people what I'm doing, but I let them hold the tools and put steel to stone and see what it really takes to move the granite. It's a lot harder than people think, but it's really, really fun. And I enjoy working with children the most.
Yeah, I bet, because they just ask the darndest questions, right? They're so honest, and they're probably fascinated by what you do.
They do, and I think they're surprised too, because they don't think that a small person can do this kind of work. So they see me doing it, not only am I small, but I'm female, and they think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be scared. And I'll put the tool in their hands and they'll start removing stone, and they just light right up.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Well, they have so many events here at the Granite Museum. When you said you work here, that you really should check it out. They do an amazing job setting up the event and just watching people with your talent. It's just really great.
It's really fun. They do put on a good party.
Yeah, they do. So have you learned anything in particular maybe about your craft or about just the history of Barre Granite here in Barre?
I learn something new every time I walk into this building, honestly. Scott and the team do a great job with the exhibits. There's always something new to look at. And I've learned personally that I really like working with the public, and I really enjoy sharing my craft with people.
That's great. Now, do you have a studio somewhere where people can see your work?
I do. I'm located on Route 302, headed out towards East Barre.
Oh, great. Very good. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's in an old granite shed.
Oh, is it really? Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I moved last year, and it's been a great spot.
What fun. Is it just your space, or do you share it with others?
I rent space in this old manufacturing plant.
That's great.
I do.
So what would you say to folks who might be interested in volunteering? What do you get out of volunteering here? I
get the chance to share my story with people. I get exposure for my own artwork, but I think the thing that touches me most is that I get to be a big part of this living history.
Right, it's excellent. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too,
And you have to come down and see her work. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really excellent. Thank you for joining us. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Right. So our next volunteer is Bill Barre, who I have known, we just figured out, since 1991.
Right.
Welcome, Bill. Thank you. So let's tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can leave out the stories about me.
Okay, we'll do that. Well, Bill Barre from Barre is really not from Barre, although I've used that nickname for a long time. Came from the Boston area in Boston, Massachusetts, and arrived in Vermont back in the 60s as a school teacher down in Manchester. Taught high school, junior high school, earth science, biology. And did that for 10 years, and then decided I'd had enough of 15-year-olds. So I pursued a career up in the Montpelier area with the state of Vermont. And my first job with the state was actually as a vocational rehabilitation counselor.
Wow, great.
And then was given an opportunity to go to work for Department of Public Safety.
Very nice.
And worked for them as a radiological defense officer for a couple of years, and then finally wound up with environmental conservation.
Good for you.
And I've been retired. I took the golden handshake they offered us back in 1996.
I was there at the time. Good job.
So I had 27 years service and was 62 years old, and I bailed, and I've been retired ever since.
Great. So what brought you to the museum here? What attracted you?
Well, I kind of came in the back door. Yeah, back in 1996, new in retirement, I started to volunteer for the Central Vermont Chamber of Commerce. And they operated a information booth on the corner of Cottage and Main Street in Barre, near the old where the Grand Union was.
Yes, right.
And I volunteered in the information booth a couple of days a week, and did that for, about a year and a half, 2 years. And what happened was the chamber decided to close that and to move the operation over into the depot. And I believe they were invited to come there by the infancy situation with the Granite Museum.
Right.
At that
That's
time,
right.
it was a stone art school.
Yep.
They didn't even, this place wasn't on anybody's
Exactly.
agenda.
Nobody's on radar.
Right, so this was back in 1997. And I was there with probably 15 or 16 other volunteers who had been at the Cottage Street facility. And what we were doing was staffing the desk. And at that time, they were running classes for adults as part of an adult education program. And the people who had worked as volunteers for the information booth were then doing that same thing over there. And that kind of backed us into we were in the Granite Museum's headquarters.
And here we are.
So that's...
So when was that? How many years have you been
Well,
volunteering?
1997.
Oh, there you go.
So what are we talking? 30, I guess, huh?
Exactly. That's great.
No, 20.
Yep.
20 years.
Yes.
20 years.
We can edit that out.
Yeah, 20 years. It's 20 years.
Yeah, we can't do math. So new math. So you work a lot on the desk here, right?
That's
welcoming
basically
people?
what I do. What happened was the depot got to be renovated, so they closed that operation, and they decided to keep a presence going. So even though this place was still a process undergoing, they opened up here.
Aren't you amazed at where we are today here? It's incredible.
I'm absolutely stunned by the progress that's been made recently. For a lot of years, for about 10 years, not a lot had happened here. And then in the past 4 or 5 years, things really caught fire.
They have, and the board, I was on the board for a while, and you ask Patty Merriam, who's the president, would say, we need this done. Within 2 days, it's done, because these guys just jump right in and do it. It's amazing what they've done.
What I've noticed happening, when I first started in this building, we had dirt floor.
Yep, right.
Very primitive little entrance. And all of a sudden, when Scott arrived here, that's when things really changed.
Yeah, just for your, Scott McLaughlin is the executive director, and he comes with such knowledge of history, of art. He's an amazing guy.
The whole thing is, he's got a lot of knowledge, but number one, he's an idea person. He will come up with an idea. This is what would be a good thing to do.
Right.
The other part of the package is he does it.
Yes, I've seen him in here hammering and nailing.
Snow plowing. He said, we need to get the snowplow. So what he did, he got Granite Industries of Vermont to volunteer to use their truck.
Yep.
And what he does is goes down, gets the truck with the plow, comes back here, plows the snow, and then brings it back.
He is a true find for sure.
He does all the stuff, all of this carpentry work here, he did himself.
Yep.
Went to Allen Lumber, got the stock, got the hardware and the casters that are on it.
Brings his
and
dad
actually built the stuff he did here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a whole different thing than
right.
somebody, he doesn't really have an office.
No?
Because he's on the go all the time.
But he's so passionate about this. It's really a pleasure watching him work. So what kind of experience have you gotten from working here?
Well,
any good stories you can tell us about people's amazement when they come in here?
Well, when we started off, we were having very, very few people because people just didn't know about the place. The locals had known about it, had seen what they thought there was to see, and our visitors kind of dropped off. What we were really having is people who had worked in the granite industry, and they wanted to see artifacts and things that they had worked with. And she had a lot of people who had worked for Jones Brothers would come in and want to see what the place looked like 50 years later. And the last couple of years with Scott has really gone about marketing the tourist trade. We get people from everywhere.
Well, they just put in a brand new kitchen. You can have catered events here. I put together a couple of months ago an event here, and Scott just went over and above what I thought he was going to do for us. It was an amazing event.
We've had weddings here. And I say weddings, the actual marriage ceremony out in the museum part, and then the reception dinner here.
It's great.
So there's all kinds of activity that he's done.
So
and that helps because more people know about the place.
They know about it. Every place I go, I tell people you've got to come down and see where this museum is at these days. I have to share one thing before we finish talking to Bill. We are sitting on a Barre gray granite that was put together, that was ordered by Tom Lozon and Bob Pope from Swenson Granite and Rock of Ages. And it's dedicated to Senator Bill Doyle. We had an event for him a couple of weeks ago. And a picture of this, you cannot move this thing, so a picture of this was presented to Bill. And it will be placed on Johnson State College grounds. They have to wait for the spring to build a platform, otherwise it'll sink into the ground. And this thing is just gorgeous and well-deserved, I might say. And I won't read the inscription, but it's to thank Bill for all his work with students. Isn't this amazing?
It is.
It's great. So Bill, thank you so much for stopping by today and for helping me explain the Senator Bill Doyle granite bench. And you have such amazing history. I hope you stay here forever, ever. Thank you very much for stopping by, Bill. We appreciate all your volunteering. Thanks. So our next volunteer is Sue Talmadge. Sue, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have lived in Barre for 40 years. That doesn't make me a Vermonter.
No, exactly.
But I feel like one, and this is my home. So we raised our children here, when we came, and after they sort of at least got in high school, then I taught at Berlin Elementary School for
my hometown. Nice, thank you.
Almost 20 years in the special ed department, teaching, providing speech language services to Berlin students.
Nice.
So I retired from that. Now it's about 10 years ago, but.
Well, you were telling me a wonderful story about how you came to volunteer at the museum, and I'd love you to share that with folks.
Several years ago, the museum had been kind of limping along, and a lot of money had been invested and people couldn't really see it. So they had a public forum. They held a public forum, which I went to try and see from the citizens if they really wanted this museum to happen, first of all, and second of all, what they could do to help push it along. People really thought it was an important thing to have in this community, And the one thing I had was time, so I felt I could be a
Great.
volunteer.
Good. Well, we're glad you are. What do you do here for the museum? How do you help?
I do anything Scott asks me to do.
That's great. Good.
So I do things like upkeep of the museum. We have sweeping, dusting, there's granite dust all the time. I work in the archives, organizing and collating materials
right.
that come in from the personal people, personal families and all donate things,
great.
as well as many of the sheds as they're moving around,
Sure.
moving things out.
Exactly.
They give them to the museum. So we organize that material, and that comes in. And then I give tours.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I can give tours
do you have
in
any
the summer.
special stories about, I don't know, I think people when they walk in here, I don't know what they're expecting, but their eyes get big like deer in headlight. It's fabulous in here.
Well, it is, and I think people have, men often, I think, are very taken with the mechanics, the machinery, the overhead crane, and all
Right,
that story, which is why when this building was built, it was because of these overhead cranes that had been invented by then.
Exactly.
And women often, I love taking women around, or people around, but women particularly, who are from this area, because they often have stories about their fathers, grandfathers,
Sure,
people
in the
who have
industry.
worked in the sheds, and have little personal stories or things that they remember.
That's great.
When they were children. So those, I always learn a lot.
That's great. I was here when Lost Nation Theater did Stone here and it was so amazing to be here, listening to the stories that are told in the play, and being surrounded by all
I
of this.
agree with you. I came to that too.
Wasn't
I
it
thought
amazing?
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Really wonderful.
Yeah. So, what have you gained from volunteering here? Just personal knowledge, or?
Well, I've gained a lot of, every day, every time I come, I feel I go away having learned something
Wow.
new. So, Granite is really the reason Barre is here,
Yeah.
and so it's sort of the crux of our whole life here.
Yeah.
And I come away with personal stories, things about granite and quarrying it, and business things. So I always feel every day is a good day.
That's great. Well, what would you kind of encourage people to volunteer? What would be your message?
Well, I mean, there's lots of work to be done in
Right.
the archive room.
Right.
So if you don't mind puttering around a lot of dusty old
Great.
boxes and papers of things, I learn from that too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the summer when we're open, I think from May to middle of October, people do come, so you can learn to give tours.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. It's really a sort of a self-touring museum, but
Because
it's always nice to have a person there,
Yeah,
I think.
right. It's
to
very
ask
easy because
questions.
everything's labeled. There's some stories with all of the pictures, so you're
Yes.
right. You can kind of do it yourself. But,
Right, and that's the hope, I think, of Scott, to have it be more
Right.
of a self-tour museum, but personal contact is
Yes,
really
exactly.
nice.
Well, thank you so much, Sue, for coming, and thank you for volunteering. This
My
is a great
pleasure.
place for us to say thank you to you.
Thank you very much.
So our next volunteer is Carol McDougall. Carol, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for the museum.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, isn't it great here?
It is.
It's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then why you came to the museum to volunteer?
Sure. I retired several years ago from the Department for Children and Families as a social worker, and I knew I didn't want to do
thank
that.
you for that.
I didn't want to do that any longer, but I still wanted to interact with people. I actually spent some time incapacitated, so I had a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do with the next part of my life. And what I really wanted to do is to welcome visitors to Vermont, however I did
Nice.
that. So I'm currently working at the Visitor Center in Montpelier. I do a couple of other jobs, and here at the museum, the reason that I started volunteering here was for the promise that I'd be able to greet guests.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
That's good. Well,
it has
they've
been.
really have gotten a lot more guests over the years, haven't they?
Yes, we really had a lot of visitors from all over the world last year.
Yeah. How long have you been working here?
I started about a year and 2 months ago.
Well, I bet you've even seen changes in that year. When we moved the train here, I just realized, I don't know if people know, there's this giant engine right outside, which was quite the event to moving it from downtown Barre to here.
It was spectacular.
Were you here when they did that?
I was not. I was not. I was working.
Yeah, I wasn't here either. I was in Maine, and I had helped get the permits and all the stuff that had to be done through the railroad, and I just thought it must have been spectacular.
Yeah.
Great place.
It's spectacular right now.
So, do you do tours or just greet folks and set them up with the tours?
Well, I'm usually here on Saturdays. It's usually just Scott and I on Saturdays, so it would be really good to have more volunteers.
Yep.
And whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
A lot of times I am just in the booth greeting guests, and often I have asked people if they'd like me to walk around with them and
nice.
give them a little tour.
Have you have any special stories that you can share of that interaction, people's amazement at this place?
Yeah, well, getting back to, this is attracting people from literally all over the world. We had many people from Europe, from Great Britain, but the family that I enjoyed probably the most were from Israel. They were
really?
so interested in Vermont granite.
Great.
It was a joy,
Do you know how they heard about the museum? Why did they know it was here?
They picked up a brochure in some visitor center someplace.
Right.
And so it was their destination when they came here. And, I like to be sure that they see everything that we have to do here in Barre. So I sent them off to Hope, and I sent them up to Rock of Ages and told them that they really should, just bounce around downtown a bit, because we have a lot of very interesting things.
Yeah, we do. We have some great stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to any of the events that they put on here? Because they do, and they have the new kitchen, so people can have events and have it catered.
Yes.
Yeah,
I have been.
Have you? Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
The kitchen was first used, I think, during the Heritage Festival last year.
Oh, really?
On a big basis. Lubiana, who used to own the bridal shop, came and prepared a dinner, so we got to watch and we got to eat.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and that night we had a couple here from, I think it was Kentucky, and they joined us for dinner. And
that's great. Well, I think
it was fabulous.
Oh, that's excellent. I have not. I've not seen the kitchen in operation, so I'd certainly like to come when that's. I helped paint the walls. That's what a volunteer did.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. We had fun. So now we have you've seen the laying the floors. It's all no more dirt floors, which must help a lot.
Concrete is complete now. Yes, it is. It's wonderful to have it all done.
Yeah, that's great.
But there's never a time that I come in here that there's not something new.
Right.
Every week when I come in, there's something new that's happened.
Great. What's your favorite thing here that you like to share with people? Your favorite statue, your favorite display? Is there anything in particular that sticks out?
It's all beautiful. I like bringing people out here so that they see that this tradition of sculpture in Barre carries on over the generations. I like them to know that Barre once had the, Barre Evening Drawing School, and look what has become.
Right. Well, I know they're trying really hard to get another stone art school back here, because I think the industry needs the talent. They're looking for people to do what needs to be done to get these statues and monuments completed.
There have been people who have come in specifically to see the Stone Art School because they are interested.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have it up.
Well, and every once in a while you have artists. We had Heather Ritchie this morning, and she said she comes here and does her thing while people are watching. I bet they must find that fascinating.
It is. It is fascinating for people.
That's
well,
great.
if you went to Firewalk, and we had several of the artists here doing whatever it was that they were doing, and people were really drawn to it.
Yeah, that was a huge crowd that night. Could you explain, explain a little bit about Firewalk here?
Firewalk happens the same weekend that Rockfire does at
which is in
Millstone.
Barre Town, right?
here at the Granite Museum, we have approximately a mile-long walk. It happens once it turns dusk. The trail is lit with candles. You have a guide. There might be 10, sometimes I think there have been 12 different stages where you'll meet one of our ancestors and they'll tell you a little bit about themselves.
Right.
It's been a big hit.
Oh, yeah, I know. Because just to explain, they have actors come and they set up little stage areas along the walk
right.
and then tell a little history.
That's right.
Yeah, in the dark, which is fabulous.
It is fabulous. It's absolutely
that's great.
fabulous.
And so do you work at that night? Do you volunteer?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for all of that.
It's like I said, it's a pleasure. I love being here. It's a wonderful
great.
place to be.
Well, why would you tell people to come volunteer?
Come and volunteer, please.
Please.
Yes. Volunteering here is unique, really. There's a lot of camaraderie. There are no airs put on. No matter what skill you may or may not have, there's something that you can do. We definitely need you.
Great. Well said.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much here to do.
There is.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Carol.
Pleasure.
Pleasure meeting you. Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have with us Cooper Sheldon, who has got the most interesting background. Cooper, welcome.
Thank you.
for all you do here. You've got to tell folks about your grant and why you're here.
Well, I'm actually a graduate from SUNY Potsdam in Potsdam, New York. And I'm not a native to Vermont, but every time that I get the opportunity, I come up here to Vermont, to the Vermont Granite Museum, live locally, and volunteer my time here for about a week or two while I'm here.
That's great.
In 2014, I was actually a volunteer here at the Vermont Granite Museum, and I did a cultural landscape mapping project. And while I was here, I had a grant to work, but I don't think I started doing my research until about 3-4 weeks in, because I was helping Scott get this whole project prepared.
Right.
But it was a great opportunity. I loved it, and I actually did a archaeological excavation out in the back lot with the Boy Scouts during the summer.
Oh, how
Yeah.
excellent.
And the Argus Times came up and did a interview with us and was part of the excavation. And people don't realize how beneficial heritage management is to a community, where you can actually learn more about yourself and the community you were born into than you could possibly ever read in a history book.
Did you find anything interesting with the Boy Scouts? I'm sure there's like stuff all over this place.
Well, actually, when they went to take this whole building and renovate it,
Right.
they moved all of the debris that was in here, because this was all dirt floor. They
Right.
moved it all and then pushed it onto a pile out back. And that's what we did. So we just excavated that pile, and the Scouts would always have a fun time just looking around, seeing what it is. It was introductory, but we hoped that it sparked some sort of inspiration to
That's
continue
great.
doing
Good
that.
for you. So you said you're doing research here. What does that mean? What kind of research? Do you have a special end in mind to find out information about a certain artifacts, or what does research mean in this context?
Well, when I did this, I actually was given the grant to create a project. I followed through the project, used a program called GIS to map out the cultural landscape, or what people's impressions are of the landscape, and you map it over the course of time and space. So the building itself grew and expanded, and then it contracted during the a sort of a lull in the granite industry before it continued to where it is now.
Wow.
And even though it's thriving now, we still have the landscape here shows it's sort of like a photograph into understanding what we used to be and what we are now. And with that information, I created a article that I published in my local college's paper, and you can actually find it online.
What's the
It's called the article is called "A Site Not to Be Taken for Granted."
Oh, clever. Excellent.
Yeah, but I'm actually going to graduate school in the fall for industrial archaeology and heritage management, based on what I did here at the Granite
Wow,
Museum,
good for
because
you.
I enjoyed it so much, and I enjoyed company towns, and just the volunteering here at the museum was such a great experience that I try to bring people up here so then they can volunteer here and learn from Scott and learn from just this community that you
So
have
are there
here.
others here like you that are here now? Or
I'm the only archaeologist other than Scott
Yeah.
here, and we actually, a few of the first interns weren't necessarily just archaeologists, but there was also a marketing intern and a
Yeah.
graphic design student and a historian. So all walks of life are welcome.
Sure, I was
And-
going to say, we all need all those to promote this place. So.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And this place could be used for so many different things.
Yeah.
Not only just a museum, but also a place for gathering and community ownership.
Right. Well, we've had some community meetings here when I worked for Barre City. We had community meetings here. I've run an event here, which Scott helped me with. It's just amazing, the facility. It's great here. And you must have seen a lot of changes since you've been
Oh,
here. I
definitely.
mean, the floors alone are incredible.
I could list all the different things that have happened and all the things that I hope that Scott has in mind for the future. The floor, I came back here one time and it was poured.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just after having a whole summer where I had to lie on the gravel and paint the underside of benches and tables. It was, and all these pillars that you have around here, we just pulled out all the nails
Right.
with screwdrivers and pliers
Wow.
for the 2 to 3 weeks that I did it.
So do you get to interact with any of the tourists that come here? Do you get to talk to them? Do you interview them? And
I actually would give tours.
good for you.
And second to Scott, I was the second person that knew what they were talking about when
I bet.
actually doing the tours. And it was, I think one of the tours lasted 3 to 4 hours long.
Oh, really?
And when we had the rock fire event, the event that happened down here, we actually kept on giving tours. So I would have an hour tour, followed by another hour tour, followed by another hour tour. And if you can get me and Scott talking, we can just continue until our throats give out.
Well, what fun for you to be working with Scott with his
Oh,
background. He's done so much for this museum. It's
I
amazing.
can't imagine this museum without Scott, and he is my favorite advisor, even though I never had him as a professor.
That's great. Were you here when they moved the train onto the property?
That was a month after I left.
Oh, really?
It was a month after I left.
I missed it too. I was watching it on my computer, and it was just fabulous to watch it. I just can't imagine moving that thing.
Yeah, no, it's just so much has been done, so much
Yeah.
continues to be done.
Right. Well, I'm sure you've added to the plans with some ideas. What would you say to folks that get them to volunteer down here?
Well, if you enjoy history and you enjoy volunteering and you enjoy inspiring yourself to find out more about yourself, this is a place to find that and do more to help your community grow and help the historical side of your community grow for others to hopefully enjoy down the road.
That's great. You mentioned before that you looked at Barre as a company town, and I guess back in its glory days, it really was just about the granite industry here.
Oh, definitely.
In Barre.
And just because it was a company town doesn't mean that the people didn't make it up.
Oh,
because
for sure.
the people, all the different cultures, and that's one of my favorite things, is that everybody came together in one big huddle
Right.
and just decided, hey, we're going to create a granite industry. And everybody did everything. There was no real division between, oh, you're supposed to do this or you're supposed to do that. And there wasn't much discrimination in the industry. Of course, there were people who were tasked with different, based on their backgrounds.
Right.
But it was more or less everybody came together as a whole and they thrived.
There's a concept that we could learn from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Welcome.
Cooper. I appreciate all your thoughts, and good luck with your future education and
Thank you very much.
future field. Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Rachel. I work for Green Mountain Behavioral Consulting, and Peter and I volunteer here at the museum, helping them organize and import files onto the computer. And it's a great experience and an awesome way to get him out into the community and socializing.
And our next guest is Bob Kuchar, who has got an amazing background in the industry. Bob, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Could you tell folks a little bit about yourself and your family? And
Okay, that would have to include my family, just myself, but my father bought a small granite plant here in Barre in 1945, and he ran it. And in the early 50s, my older brother Armin went to work for him. And in 1955, while I was in high school, I went to work part-time for him. Then the next event, I think, would be 1959, when we needed some part-time office help for 6 months only, 6 months job. And we got in touch with the Spalding High School and said to send somebody down who knew a little bookkeeping. So they sent a smart, sweet girl named Mary Ann. And she worked for the 6 months. When that was over, we let her go. And after that point, I dated her and I married her.
I love it.
And at that point, she ran the office after that. So she was involved in the company 45 years.
Wow.
And then my younger brother in the mid-60s, I guess, my brother Roger, he came and worked for it. So we had my father, my brother Armin, my wife Marianne, and myself and Roger. So
Very nice. And I know you've been very involved in the museum, because pretty much every time I've come down here, you've been here. So what attracted you?
Actually,
to
this
the
is
museum?
something new. When it first started, I was all for it, but then I didn't get involved with it at all until about a year and a half ago, I guess. I had some photographs and some other books and things that I came down one afternoon just to drop them off and give them to Scott.
Well, that'll do it.
Yeah, that did it. I didn't even leave that day. I think he got me going that day, scanning or doing something of the photographs I brought. And,
That's great.
and I think I started coming in maybe about once a week, and then
More than that,
often,
I think, right?
and a few times 5 days a week. I really enjoy it. I've always been in favor of this museum and other museums, and
That's great.
and,
Now, what was your trade? We were talking about you doing draftsman, right?
drafting was,
Yeah.
that was my primary, that's what I enjoyed the most.
Right.
I also ran the wire saw and did some shipping and ran the boom derrick. And
Did you have any formal training, or was it OJT?
No,
on-the-job training?
my junior and senior year of high school, I had the monument drafting corps.
Oh, right.
And then I took another year full-time after that at the Memorial Art School on the Hill, we call it.
Great.
So I had 3 years of monumental drafting.
Excellent.
And then in between, on the plant, I would dabble with it a little bit.
That's
and
great.
It was good, clean work as opposed to running the wire saw, so I liked
Great.
doing that. And I still do that today.
So what do you do down here? Everything Scott says to do?
I
Is
do
that pretty
everything.
much
You
it?
come in,
Yeah.
you come in the morning or afternoon, you don't know what you're going to do. Well, Scott will have a job for you. We
Yeah.
do carpenter work, and we go around with a truck and pick up collections from different granite plants.
That's great. That's great.
We could painting, sweeping the floors, a lot of scanning and filing.
Right. Must be great to go through the old files, since your business was in this industry, just to see different competitors and pictures from way back when.
Yeah, I find that interesting
Yeah.
because as I was starting the business, there were a lot of people who were ending their careers, so I know a lot of these old families, the Baturs and the Girardis,
Right.
and I got to meet them through the Barre Granite Association in different meetings. So,
That's great.
and then they retired or got out of the business, retired. And eventually I did the same thing.
That's great. Well, a lot of them are now involved in the board here at the museum.
Yes.
Which is great, the Girardis and...
Yep, no, that's now I know Girardi's
Yep.
father.
Oh, wow. That goes back a ways.
And even his grandfather.
Yeah. Goodness,
So,
you
yeah,
must have seen this building just change dramatically
Oh,
from,
yeah,
from when it was the Jones Brothers to what it is now.
Yeah, I remember when it was operating Jones Brothers. In fact, once in a while they would buy some stone from us. We would produce it and bring it here. And I would deliver it. So that must have been, I don't know, in the 1960s, I imagine. I can't remember exactly.
Well, what do you think about what they've done to this building?
Oh, it's terrific
Isn't it
now.
amazing?
Yeah, it's nice now.
Yeah, because every day there's something new they're doing. And I know they're looking for another school to come back here because Mark Girardi was saying at a board meeting that they don't have the people with the skills that they need. Looking ahead, that we really need people with the kind of skills that will keep this industry going.
Apparently that's so. I've been out of the business now for 12 years, so it's not affecting me anymore. But unless they hire an apprentice and teach him, and that's an expensive proposition. It's 3 or 4 years before they're going to make any money for you. So a school program here would be great.
Yeah, I think so, because I think Mark was saying you've got to think now. It's okay now, but you've got to think, 10,
way ahead.
20 years ahead. Make sure you've got the staff.
That's right.
So what is your best memory from being with the museum? Have you met anybody that's left a lasting impression on you, or any stories you'd like to share?
When I go through these items that have been donated, just recently, as I mentioned, I went to the Monumental Drafting School for 3 years, and the teacher was Emilio Politi. And so when we got some of these donations, I came across a lot of his designs and a lot of his original airbrush designs. So that got to thinking about, gosh, 60 years ago, this man was teaching me how to draft.
Nice.
And now I'm recording his.
Oh, wonderful.
So.
That's an old name from
Emilio Politi. Yeah, I remember him well. I liked him well.
Nice. So, what would you say to people that may be interested in volunteering here, and why should they volunteer here?
Well, it's a great thing to do. Instead of sitting at home and whether you're watching television or whatever you do, you should have activities at home also. But there's so much need for them here. And it's very interesting. I'm filing some old newspaper clippings, and next thing I know, it's about me. It's happened a couple of times.
Oh, I bet you've seen some about you and your family.
Oh yeah, our company,
cool.
myself and my family, and so it's very, very interesting. If you were in the granite business, and even if you weren't in the granite business, if you were a local person or you knew somebody in the granite business, I really find it interesting.
Barre's history. It's who we are, right?
Yes, that's exactly who we are. Yeah.
That's right. That's great. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to share before we finish our discussion? Because you've got so much history here.
Well, have some volunteers come down and I'll talk to them.
There you go.
And,
I bet people stop when they're touring around. If they see you, do you talk to them and share your stories with them?
Sometimes when they see my truck parked outside, they'll pull in and talk to me.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
Or sometimes they come in and I may not be here, but they're looking for me.
Oh,
so
wow.
Hopefully we'll get some more of those people coming. And I'd like to see more volunteers, especially the people that have been in the granite industry, and they know what they're looking at here. When we've got all kinds of thousands of full-size drawings in there that we've gone through and packed up so that they won't be damaged, and photographs.
And we haven't talked about this, but the Barre Granite Association has moved into this building, which they have brought along with them boxes of stuff. So I have a feeling your assignments will never end.
Oh no, we're going through those boxes now. I think it was 3 or 4 truckloads of that stuff that came out of the Barre
Well, they were in
Granite.
that building for a long time on the circle.
Yeah, very, very long time.
Yeah.
So we have all that stuff here now. We're going through it.
I think that's the best thing to have them here. It just really solidifies the industry and makes a great connection.
Yeah, this is where they should be.
Yeah, that's great. It benefits everybody.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Bob, thank you very much for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, come on and meet Bob. So our next volunteer has a wonderful background, and I'm so excited that she's here. Valerie Wallen. Welcome, Valerie. You have to tell folks how you got to come to the museum through the Reach Up program in the Department of Labor.
I met with my social worker and or my Reach Up worker and a worker from Weber, and they brought me down here, and I met with Scott, and I started working here pretty much right away, and I've been here since August, actually.
For those of you who may not know about the Reach Up program, it's a program to help people get back into the workplace and get them the skills that they need. And that's really great that you're doing this. So what are you doing here in the museum for them?
I have been promoted to the volunteer coordinator.
Good.
So when Scott's busy, then I can give everyone different tasks to do.
That's great. So are you out looking for volunteers? Or when they come in and then you assign them jobs to do?
I assign them the jobs to do. I do interviews when they come in to volunteer or want to volunteer or to see if they want to volunteer here.
Great. So you're really the person to talk to besides Scott, because we're interviewing volunteers, first of all, so that people understand what's going on in the museum, but also to hopefully encourage them to pick up the phone and volunteer. So what kind of jobs are there? It's just, we had some woman today said she was driving a forklift truck, and so there's lots of things to do. It's not traditional work.
No, it's not. There's lots of things to do. There's, a lot of people just think, oh, I want to do computer work. We don't have just computer work. There's a lot of archive things to do. There's, right now it's, it's not real busy, but there's the granite pieces get moved around.
Right.
Then there's
I know Scott's always building. There's stuff to do with hammer and nails and a lot of work to do at the grounds.
right.
Yeah.
And it's more than just what people like sitting down and doing
Right.
sit down work. There's some heavy lifting. People think like, oh, I'm just gonna go here and volunteer and I'm just gonna sit down, but we don't. We're running from here to there, getting ready for events.
That's great.
Because people want to rent the space out, and so we get the place ready.
Have you been through an event with Scott? Has there been one here yet?
There's been events here, but I've only been here for one event,
Okay.
but I have not been here like for an entire
Because
event.
he's planning a huge event the day that it opens here. I think he's getting sculptors and people to come and do exhibits, and they do an amazing job when there's an event here. And the kitchen is spectacular for catering, right?
It is, yep.
Yeah, that's great. So how long will you be here?
That is to be determined,
To be
actually.
determined. Well, I think it's great that you picked this spot.
I'm very comfortable here, and I don't want to leave here.
Did
so
you ever have any interest in history, or you have now, I bet?
I've been in the granite industry pretty much.
Oh,
My father worked in the granite industry. My grandfather worked in the
Perfect.
granite industry. My uncle worked in the granite industry. I actually worked for the BGA 20 years ago.
oh, and now they're here in this
And
building.
now they're
Yeah,
here, so it's not new to me,
It's in the blood,
but
Good for
I
you.
really enjoy it.
I bet. I bet there's things that really bring back memories for you.
There are, and then there's new things that I don't know about, and
Yeah.
it's interesting
So
to
your
learn.
family worked in the sheds, right in the sheds?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
My uncle did right up until he couldn't work anymore.
Really, right, good for you. So what's the best thing you like about the museum, about being here? Any experience that you've had that you might want to share with us?
I think being promoted to volunteer coordinator is the best
That's great.
best part, but I wasn't comfortable at first when I first got here, but being able to just be comfortable in this environment and get to know different people, and I think that's a good experience.
Well,
Just to-
everybody that we've interviewed today just seem like marvelous, wonderful people to work with. So I'm sure the environment here, just working, is be very pleasant.
Scott is a very
Yeah.
nice employer.
And I'm sure he can help you a lot. That's great. So since you're the volunteer coordinator, what would you tell folks about why they should volunteer here?
It's we're a very relaxed atmosphere. There's a lot of different things to do here. You're not committed to one thing. If you want to do, say you want to do computer work, and then you don't want to sit at the computer for all day long or however many hours you're committed to. You can get up and go outside and do something else, or, you know, we're relaxed here. It's a very nice place to be.
Yeah, and there's the beautiful grounds here. We haven't talked about that much, but there's plans to do amazing things with the grounds out there, to have a bocce ball court and to have moving sculptures so that people can walk and enjoy the sculptures and enjoy the grounds out there. Have you ever walked? I mean, this thing goes back forever.
Yeah, I have. And when we're open for tours, you get to meet the different people that come, and some come from different countries, and it's really amazing how many people want to come and see, like, our history.
Right, it's just great. Somebody today said that the greatest experience they had was talking to a couple from Israel, and I said, how did somebody from Israel? This was actually their destination to come here. I mean, how amazing is that? That's really good. Do you get to talk to these folks?
Yeah, last year I was sitting outside at the picnic table, and there was a couple from Germany that had come, and they came and they sat down with me, and we just had a little conversation, and they really enjoyed just coming here.
And what experience for you to get future jobs and to have this on your resume that you were the volunteer coordinator? Oh, cool.
It is. It's, you know, if, like I said, I don't want to leave here, but I know I'm going to have to. But it's a great experience. It really is.
Good for you. So you've done just about everything here, I'm assuming.
Right up to moving blocks of granite with my bare hands,
wow,
yes.
Good for you. So listen, come down here and you can talk to Valerie. They would love to have you, correct? I think any age too. I was on the board for a while, and I used to tell Patty Miriam, who's the president, that they always had the list of hammers and nails that the guys would bring, and I'd say to her, you need something for me to do, so she'd have a separate list, which would be the archives and working, and just so many cool things you can find when you're going through the documents. You know?
Yep, it's interesting, some of the things. And I've even looked up some stuff and that Scott didn't even know existed.
Oh, really? Like, what, do you remember
it was a list of granite sheds, and I think it went back to the 1928 or 1948.
Great.
And online, because I Google everything.
That's
and
great.
He was quite impressed by that.
That's excellent.
But I'm not afraid to hammer things or anything like that. I'll do that too.
That's good. Well, every time I come here, Scott's building something, so, or he's out on the lawnmower or doing something. So there's something to do for everyone at every age. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're part of the Reach Up program. That's a great program, and I know a lot of people that it's helped to move on with their careers. So thank you very much for stopping by, and thank you for all your work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, so all afternoon from our volunteers, you've been hearing about the wonderful Scott McLaughlin. And so I thought I'd invite Scott as our sort of last guest. And Scott, could you tell everybody a little bit about your history, because you've got quite an amazing history for this job.
Well, I've been working in museums since I was in high school, and I was fortunate to be involved in two major projects: the development of the Chimney Point State Historic Site, the Mount Independence Visitor Center, working with the state, and then also working with the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum for 16 years. So I like working with projects that start from little tiny organizations and try to create something that's inspiring. And this is definitely one of them.
You've picked the right place here, because this really started just from this building. And I think everyone has said that since you came here, you've brought energy and passion to this job and gotten everybody to come along with you. So
well, it's been fun working as a community of volunteers, and this is a community museum, and we're really dependent upon the community support, and that comes in a number of different ways, whether it's volunteering, getting things done here at the museum, bringing in resources, or giving us money.
Now, what's your degree in?
I have a number of different degrees. One is archaeology. I have a PhD from Binghamton University, and then I also have a master's degree in museum studies and cultural heritage from Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, you're kidding. Now that I didn't know. We'll have to talk about that offline. Well, we're very glad that you're with us. I've always enjoyed working with you. So Ryan Mays was going to join us this afternoon because he is one of the artists that come here and works all the time.
Right.
And people can, and he wasn't able to meet with us this afternoon, but when you come into the museum, you can watch him work. And I just thought if you could take a few minutes to talk about some of the amazing things he does. And this is not granite, so.
Nope, this is plaster.
Yeah.
What Ryan did is he started with a clay model, which is only a few inches tall, and sold the Kellogg Hubbard Library board on the idea of having a little mouse with a book in front of the museum. And then from that, he made a full-size clay model, and then he cast it in plaster, and that's what we're looking at here.
Oh, that's
and if
great.
you want to see the granite one, it was installed last fall right in front of the Kellogg Hubbard Library in Montpelier.
So that's like the whole process, right?
Right.
From little to big?
Yeah,
To
exactly.
big. How do they make the scale work? I mean, how does he transfer the little model like this to something this big?
There's a number of different methods. One is to use a metal framework to go right around the model, the plaster here that we're looking at, and then taking physical measurements from that grid directly over to the model, and then setting the grid over top of the granite block, and then taking measurements there. And then you get to know how much you have to take off in order to reveal the sculpture that's inside.
That's great. Let's move on to another sculpture that he did. So Scott, and what are we looking at now? This is part of the
So this is a
process, right?
Yeah, it's a caricature. Ryan started with a photograph. That was
Yeah.
the inspiration. Gentleman in the quarries with a jackhammer. And the next thing he did was to create something in clay for us to look at to see if he was going in the correct direction. And then after his caricature, we made some modifications, and then he made the plaster or the clay model beside it. He did not do a plaster because this is terracotta clay. It dries hard. And from that, he's been able to take measurements directly from it in order to make it in granite. And this is a project he's working on for us here at the museum. He'll eventually start another one, and that will be carved right to completion. So you'll see all the stages: the inspiration, the caricature, the model, a roughed out piece, and then a finished
Yes,
element.
and Ryan is very gracious. He'll sit and talk to you and explain to you what he's doing and the different stages, because I've talked to him once or twice, and he's just very, very charming and fun to talk to. So Scott, maybe you could take us through some of Ryan's, these are pictures of his works, what they are and where they are, because I think some of them are just fabulous.
So this is actually Ryan at work in the studio at Celestial Memorials. And many of his works have gone all throughout the eastern United States. There's not a lot that stays local that is ultimately carved in Vermont. These represent kind of the spectrum of types of work that he and other sculptors do here in town. Some of them are very religious pieces, while others are really personal. Often cases they're not in cemeteries, but they're in someone's backyard. And some are memorials, and some are simply signs to commemorate what people do.
The story about the young man is really nice.
So that piece was done for someone who got in a car accident. He was only in his late teens, and his mother wanted a piece that really helped her to connect with her son.
That's great.
And so this one's not made in stone, but instead is made in bronze.
Oh, he works in bronze too.
A lot of the sculptors here in town, they'll get to the sculpture stage in plaster, and then they hand the work over to someone that will then cast it in bronze.
Oh, I see, okay.
So,
That's great. So he did all of the underpinning or underwork, and then they cast it in bronze?
Correct.
Very nice. And that's obviously in somebody, in mom's backyard?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really lovely. That's great. So I'm reading here that Ryan is from Arkansas, so they come from all over, don't they?
They do, including Europe as well as all throughout the United States. And they come here for working with the material. The granite that we have is some of the best you can find throughout the globe. And they come here also because of the community that's developed around the stone arts.
Right, that's great. So while I have you here, I was on the board for quite a while and had to step down, but I would like you to talk to everybody about the board and how important it is that we have new members and getting different views from different people on the board. If you could talk about that.
So our board is made up of individuals who are not necessarily all connected to the granite industry, but have a passion for community activities. And here at the museum, we do everything from theater arts to sculpture to kids programs. So wide variety of backgrounds when it comes to our board members. We try to get individuals that are doers, that are willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty here at the museum.
Right. And they do.
And they do,
Yep.
yep. Every year we have board retreats where they come here and help out. And we're also looking for individuals who are helping to develop our network of support, whether it comes in the form of funds or may come in the form of services that can be provided in order to make this thing operate smoothly. Right. We're in a large complex and it has lots of needs.
Great. So could you tell folks if they're interested, what number to reach you at? And
If
how to
anyone's
talk to
interested
you?
in helping on the board or helping
Right.
with committees or volunteering, please contact us here at the Vermont Granite Museum at 802-476-4605.
Or check out the website.
Exactly, at www.vtgranitemuseum.org.
Great. Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you consider volunteering.